Welcome to another day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana, which I'm doing every day for a year outside in basically the same outfit, no matter the weather. And today's weather could be the impact of Debbie traveling through, but we have some rain here. Oh, you may see me pushing back the computer at some point. It's out of the rain right now, but not taking any chances because I'm a lot more durable than the computer. Isn't that wonderful to think of? What amazing creatures we are. And given all the challenges we have in this material world, it is just astonishing how this body lasts. What can also be astonishing is how our mind persists. And what I mean by that is we're revisiting one of the wonderful questions that a viewer sent in recently about ego. The blind king Dhritarashtra in the Bhagavad Gita represents our ego. And the question had to do with, does the blind king ever feel regret or shame for what he did? And I talked about how it vacillated. Whoa, hey, sweetie. Sometimes he feels regret and shame, like when he bonks an innocent marigold. And sometimes he doesn't. No, sometimes he does feel regret and shame, but then sometimes he blames everything else, everyone else but himself. And this is a real illustration of how our egos work. We might think, many of us, that we're addiction free, although it's hard to think that in this day and age of cell phones, right? When everybody's on it all the time. But we all have an inherent addiction, and that is to our ego. Once that ego, and I'm using the term here perhaps not strictly in a Freudian sense, um, but this collection of patterns we develop for self-protection and survival. And at a very, very early age, we find what works in the world. And the world at that point is very small. It's like our parents and our family, very much the focus of Bhagavad Gita. And then we keep using those patterns over and over. And if the situation doesn't fit the pattern, we still plug away and we try to get other people to fit into our patterns instead of learning how to expand, grow, and be different. It's very pernicious and it's hard to see. That's why the king in this book is blind. It's not just a physical blindness, but an unwillingness to see. Remember, he was offered the chance for divine sight, and he said, nope, I don't want to see. So yes, the ego will feel regret and shame when it continues to serve us. And another reason we'll demonstrate these qualities is often when our world is about to fall apart, when the ego isn't working anymore, when our patterns aren't working, then we're like, I'm so sorry, I'm going to change. And the only thing that really helps us is, much like any other addiction, is unfortunately hitting bottom, is losing or having the threat of losing everything. Because as long as there's hope that we can hold on to something that we really care about, the ego, which has had years and years and decades to perfect its schemes, is going to look out for its own survival as well. That's one of the things that happens on the spiritual path. The ego, when we're young and we can't quite cope with the world fully, the ego keeps us safe. However, when we get older, instead of shedding that, then the ego looks to keeping itself safe. Well, I'm going to make the world seem just like it was when you were little, so you have to keep relying on me. And, oh, let's watch out. Oh, the world, look, that's where it fits our worldview. See, the world is like that. Instead of, there's so many possibilities. So I invite you to watch this in yourself. First of all, it's hard to figure out what your ego, because we might say, I don't have ego. I can see it in other people and where they're stubborn and where their hard spots are, but it's really hard to see it in ourselves because the ego says, well, I'm not really like that. It's just, blah. For example, I've used this story before. A friend who's always late, but it's never their fault. It's like, oh, I got out and the traffic was bad, or oh, the traffic lights were out, or oh, I was out again. It's like you can't see the pattern. It's always this justification or excuse. And this plays into chapter 1 of the Gita. Arjun has come to a place where his ego is not serving him anymore for what's ahead in life. And he is kicking and screaming. Fortunately, he has the support of his best friend. His best friend is like, I'm going to love you no matter if your ego is there or not. I'm going to look out for you. All of us need that kind of best friend, one who is honest with us and who actually lets us hit bottom. Because really, it's only when Dhritarashtra is threatened with losing everything, with when he loses his sons, all of his sons, he loses his kingdom. And yet the pattern still rears his ugly head. I'm right. I'm right. Dude, you lost everything. So when life gives you the opportunity to hit bottom, I know we fight it, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes losing the relationship, losing the career, losing something is the wake-up call that cracks us open. Because that ego is like our armor. Can we take it off? Can we genuinely take it off? That is the work of spiritual practice, is to take off the ego and be genuinely present with what is actually going on in the moment instead of what we want to manipulate the world around us into going on. It's tough. So I'm going to take myself and enjoy the rain during the balance pose, and maybe I fall over like I did yesterday. Oh, that hurt my ego, right? But we all fall over sometimes. It's just, can we pick ourselves up again? Rain. Switch. For today's contemplation, I invite you for 5 minutes to really examine a sticking point for you with your ego, your survival mechanism. What is a pattern you have that is costing you? Are you willing to give it up? Or are you going to let it break you first? Let's dwell on that light subject for 5 minutes. come on back. That may have been a tough one. And today's dedication may be tough for some of you to hear, so I invite you to observe your ego. I'm dedicating today's practice to Billy Bean. One reason is I found out he passed away when I was at the ballpark. And he died of acute myelogenous leukemia at 60, which reminded me a lot of my mom. So, man, my sympathies to him and his loved ones. But Mr. Bean was only the second out gay baseball player in the history of Major League Baseball. And still in men's professional sports, that's dangerous. You could lose everything. You could lose your job. You might have your health or life threatened. So he hid. In fact, according to a Washington Post article, he even hid this truth from himself. And then he did find a long-term partner. And here's the effect of the ego. His partner died of AIDS. And Mr. Bean couldn't bring himself to go to the funeral because he was afraid. He didn't want this story to get out. Just want you to imagine that's the power of the ego to separate us from what we really need and love in the name of survival. Imagine someone you've been really close to dying and you don't feel you can go say goodbye. Anyway, so he ended up becoming the vice president of MLB's DEI initiative. So I salute him for many reasons. I salute all of you because this whole thing is ego work. My little plants. And I hope I get to share this joyous work with you again soon. Until then.